Okay. It's like this has to be plugged in. It's not charging. Just leave it plugged in.
Okay,
How's that?
it's good. Is it, what is it of?
What?
Why does it have? Oh, I see it.
What's wrong?
Well, it has that part and this part.
Well, that's how they have it set up. I don't know why they have it set up. That's just what they have set up. I didn't set that up.
Oh, okay,
I have nothing to do with that.
good.
Are you able to hear us here?
Yes, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you as well.
Okay, good. The screen is split. Is that how it is this time?
Uh, yes, it is split between your view and us, and then the
Oh,
video cameras has three different videos on it. Yep.
okay, good.
Good.
Yes, that's gonna be perfect. You all sort of try to stay with me.
Come on.
Hi. Wait right there. Wait right there, Kim. girl. No, I'm gonna sit down here.
Here. Hey, I guess it's 5:30. Yeah. Okay, I think we should start. Okay, it's 5:30. Welcome everyone to the August 6th, 2025 meeting of the Manitou Springs Historic Preservation Commission. Oh, should I start? Good evening and welcome to the August 6th, 2025 meeting of the Manitou Springs Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission is to protect and enhance districts of historic significance and instill and foster civic pride in the legacy and achievement of the past, and to improve the economic vitality of the historic areas of the community through encouraging compatible rehabilitation of historic structures. The Historic Preservation Commission is responsible for reviewing plans for the building in the historic district for architectural appropriateness and to ensure proposals meet the city's design guidelines, which are based on the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. We'll now get started by taking roll and having commissioners introduce themselves. Joy, would you like
Hi,
to?
this is Joy Porter.
Commissioner Matt Murphy. Matt Rose, Vice Chair.
Ann Nichols.
Commissioner Aaron Handlin.
And Laura Kenseth, Chair. And our first item is approval of the minutes. We have 2 months to do. Minutes for the June 4th meeting. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or corrections? Everything good? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from June 4th?
I move to approve minutes from June 4th.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And Laura, I won't be voting. I wasn't here at the last 2 meetings.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, it's 5-0. June 4th minutes are approved. Does anyone have any comments or corrections on the July 2nd minutes? No? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
And a second. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Minutes from July 2nd are approved 5-0. Okay, let's see. Do we have any public comment? I don't think so. On non-agenda items. And any notice of council action?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished business. No? Okay, I guess we can move on to new business. It looks like we don't have any MCACs to review tonight. Does staff have anything new to announce?
No, we just keep those agenda items on there to indicate that there are no agenda items under C through F. So we can just move on to other business under item G, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so we can move on to other business, and I guess the first item is our board training.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deputy City Clerk Kristen DeCoy, and I'm going to be training you guys today and doing presentations on Colorado Sunshine Law and CORA. So just a moment while I get my screen share going here. Here's- All right. So kicking off board training with the Colorado Sunshine Law. And just to share, we've developed this training for all boards and commissions. So I'm touring all of them right now. So Colorado Sunshine Law informs the methods by which public meetings are conducted. And it's under Title 24, Article 6, Sections 101 to 502 of state statute. And then the main purpose of this law is public transparency. So we're going to focus on open meetings law today, which is under sections 401 to 402. It generally says all meetings of 3 or more members of any local public body where any public business is discussed must be open to the public. So there's 2 criteria that I'd like to highlight here. First of all, that 3 or more members, and also that public business is being discussed. All right, and then as far as what a local public body is, as a commission, you guys are a local public body, and to include more entities, that definition at the end there says any public or private entity that has been delegated any governmental decision-making function is a local public body as well. All right, so I'm going to be looking for some participation a little bit throughout just to keep things a little fun. So we're going to try to define what a meeting is here. Do you think that a meeting could happen through Facebook or Instagram? Yeah, I see a nodding of a head. Yes, it can. What about by phone? Yep. And by email? Absolutely, you're right. So a meeting is broadly defined by statute as any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business in person, by telephone, electronically, or by other means of communication. And we're going to go over 4 types of meetings, which all of these you might see as part of one meeting as well. So we're going to go over open meetings a little bit further in detail. Meetings requiring notice, meetings requiring minutes, and executive sessions. So we have a couple of fill in the blanks here and a little bit of a more detailed definition. Meetings with how many members of a local public body? Does anybody want to try to take a guess at that fill in the blank for me?
3.
3 or more, you guys are right. And then it says or a quorum, whichever is less. So I'd like to break that down a little bit more. Does anybody want to try to explain to me what a quorum is? Any guesses? Oh, thank you, Matt.
It's the required number of participants in attendance to make decisions. I'm not sure. I guess that would vary on a percentage of the body. Is that right?
You're doing great. Yeah, you're on the right track there. So I've heard it described as the majority of the board, but it is also the minimum number of members required to make the meeting valid. All right. So the reason I wanted to break that down is just to kind of give an example. Hopefully you guys never run into this, but hypothetically, if your board only consisted of 3 appointed members, what would your quorum be then? 2. Yes, you're right. So 2 is being less than 3. If that were to happen, then 2 members could potentially trigger open meetings law. And then for the second blank here, at which what is discussed? Anybody? That second criteria we talked about.
Public business.
Yep, I heard you, Joy. Public business?
Oh, sorry.
You're good. All right, and then it also says, or at which any formal action is to be taken. All right, so meetings requiring notice. A minimum of how much time does anybody want to guess? How far in advance do you have to publish your agenda? Any guess? Yes, Anne says 24 hours. That's correct. All right, and then that's with specific agenda information where possible. And it says it's required for meetings in which, in summary, that first bullet point says for formal action occurs. And then the second bullet point says at which a quorum of the body is in attendance or expected to be in attendance. So more likely that second bullet point is going to be what's triggering your public notice for meetings. And essentially it indicates that your meetings are intentional, right? So you need to notice them to the public. All right. And then when meetings require minutes, it says that minutes are required when formal action occurs or could occur. So if there's something on your agenda that indicates the possibility of action, we would recommend that you plan on taking minutes for those meetings. All right, so we're going to jump into executive sessions here. Of course, your city attorney is going to be your best resource for this. But generally, an executive session is a closed portion of a regular or special meeting held to discuss a limited number of matters. And no formal action can happen during executive session. And then there's a formal process for that where you have to state the specific provision authorizing the session as well as the topic to be discussed. So I'd like to emphasize using your staff liaisons as a resource. If you think that you are if you think you are encountering the need for an executive session, to give an example, there was a municipality, I think within the last few years here in Colorado, that did not enter executive session properly. And the court got involved with that, and the judge ruled that in fact, because they did not enter properly, it was not an executive session and therefore was still part of the public meeting. They had to release the recording from that session. So you can see the importance of following proper process here. And then to give some examples of topics for executive session, there's property transactions, attorney conferences, negotiations, personnel matters, confidential matters under state or federal law, which could be HIPAA, for example, which I don't imagine you'd run into, but just to give an example. And then documents protected under CORA, which we'll get into further here. All right, so, oops. Okay, best practices. We recommend being transparent. So when you're discussing public business, it's best to try to keep that at the meeting. Even if you are not triggering open meetings law, we would still recommend trying to stay in the spirit of the law. And with that, we would also note that it's good process so that you don't have to repeat yourself. Additionally, keep in mind that when you're talking about public business with anybody, there's the possibility that that might be transmitted to other people as well. Just a quick note on CORA, because it does cross over. Emails concerning public duties or funds are for the most part requestable under CORA. All right, emailing best practices. If you do have to email the board, or sorry, the commission for any reason, we recommend a blind carbon copy and or labels such as one-way email or do not reply. Put it in bold, put it in red if you want, just to prevent that back and forth discussion so that we're not triggering an open meeting via email. Does anybody want to try to describe to me, do you guys know what a daisy chain is? Anybody? A daisy chain? Have you heard that term before? No? Okay. So a daisy chain is indirect communication from one member to the next and so on. Yeah. So for example, that could be person A saying to person B, I think we should vote yes on this item. Person B talks to person C and says, I agree, we should vote yes. And then C to D might say, for your information. Now that would trigger open meetings law and is not very transparent, right? So we want to avoid that kind of communication as well. All right, so some emails that are not included in triggering that open meetings law are emails that do not relate to the merits or substance of pending legislations or other public business. Emails about scheduling and availability, but that's pretty straightforward, that one. And then emails for the purpose of forwarding information. Now, we did just talk about daisy chains, so we want to be cautious of this one. The kind of information that I'm referring to here is like forwarding packet material, or that'll be articles or research, more likely to your staff liaison and or chair, depending on what your processes are. All right, so just a moment here. If you guys, has anybody here used Menti before? It's a quiz that I've made up here for fun. If you want to get your phones out, I'm going to open that up just a second. And there we go. So these are some scenarios that I'm going to ask you guys about. And you can just take your best guess. So this one, so if you go to menti.com, and then you can plug in the code. You can participate in this little quiz here. Yep, MENTI.com. Okay, looks like I got 3 people in there who got some answers. While the rest of you are getting logged in, it does say Jane is having a party for the holidays and she has invited everyone on her board. Does her event fall under open meetings law? So we can keep in mind what the criteria was that we first went over.
What was the code?
The code is 5223-0942.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, I'm going to go ahead and reveal our answer here. The answer is technically no, because the holiday party is not for the intent of discussing public business. Now, you may have seen in the past, sometimes the city will put out a notice of possible quorum, and that's a good caution for if a quorum is going to be at an event. But since we're not there to discuss public business, it's not an open meeting. All right, next question here for you. It says, Tom is discussing public business with an alternate member on his board. When another member approaches, will the discussion trigger open meetings law? All right, let's take a look at this one. So the answer is yes, because they're an alternate member, they're still on your board, and there's a possibility anytime, of course, that they could be promoted to a voting member. All right, so we have multiple scenarios on this one, and you can choose multiple answers. So which do you think might be considered an open meeting? We have 2 board members discussing public business while out at lunch. 2 board members discussing public business via emails that include the entire board. 3 board members discussing public funds at the office. And 4 board members discussing availability for their next meeting. All right, it looks like everyone answered there. So the answer is the 2 in the middle. The reason the board member is discussing public business while at lunch is because in your scenario, you need at least 3 or more. Now, if you're considering that you might have a smaller board of 3, then yes, that could trigger open meetings law. And of course, it's maybe not in the best spirit to be out at lunch having in-depth conversation about public business. All right. And then I would love your guys' feedback if you want to input what you learned about about Colorado Sunshine Law. We're going to move on to Cora a bit here, but if you have any feedback for us, we'd love that. Yes, it's good to be careful. All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate the feedback. If you're still inputting, then I'll see that later, and I'll appreciate that feedback that I get to keep that for our records for future training. All right, let me go ahead and jump back out of here. And then do you guys have any questions before we move on to Cora? All right.
I did have a question, but it was on this last test
Mhm.
where you gave the 4 examples and asked which ones were actually open meeting.
Yeah.
So the first one, why wasn't the first one?
Yeah, so that was the 2 board members out at lunch discussing public business. For your board, your quorum is you have 6 members right now, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so your quorum is 4. So be so remember that 3 or more or a quorum, whichever is less. So
Oh,
it
okay.
has to be that 3 or more for you guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought under Cora it was 2 or more.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is 3 or more, but there is that specific scenario. If you were a smaller board, then that might apply.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, so let's talk about open records law. Colorado Open Records Act falls under Title 24, Article 72, starting with Section 201. And it says that all public records shall be open for inspection by any person at reasonable times. How many have seen this message before, maybe when emailing staff? That says, under Cora, all messages sent to or from this email account may be subject to public disclosure. Yeah, I see some nodding. So that's just a reminder that our correspondence as staff is requestable. So to define what a public record is, I'm going to highlight the important parts here relevant to us. All writings made, maintained, or kept by any local government financed entity for use in the exercise of functions required or authorized by law or administrative rule or involving the receipt or expenditure of funds. And I'll add that that does include correspondence of elected officials and appointed members. Does anybody have any questions about that definition? No? Okay. All right, so there's some correspondence that's not included in public records. Generally, work product is not included, which consists of deliberative materials assembled for elected officials or prepared for or by elected officials. That's going to be items like notes, memos, and preliminary drafts. Also not included is communications not for use in performance of public functions or involving public funds. And then communications clearly of a personal nature are not included in public records. Here are some examples of records that are not public, but more importantly, I'd like to highlight redacted information. We do redact personal identifiable information when responding to core requests. So that's going to be your personal phone number, email address, credit card numbers, if those are in the record. And then correspondence not to public business or public funds. All right. Can anybody tell me who the custodian of records is? Anyone? It's the city clerk. And then I'll add that as deputy, I also act on behalf of the city clerk to respond to core requests as needed. And then to kind of give an overview of what our processes look like, it's kind of where we're heading with the rest of the presentation here. The statute does allow the city clerk to make rules necessary for the protection of records and prevention of interference with the regular duties of the clerk's office. So we do have a Manitou Springs public records policy, which is fully available on our city clerk webpage. Purpose of that is to assure prompt and equitable service. And our policy is to make all records available for public inspection unless such records are protected from disclosure by state or federal law, by court order, or unless disclosure of such records would be contrary to public interest. And then I'd like to add that this does not include criminal justice records maintained by Manitou Springs Police Department. However, they do use the same form as us, which is available on the webpage. And we also can provide that in person if you prefer a paper version. We do require that be submitted in writing with sufficient specificity, because if we don't have enough information, it's going to be hard for us to fulfill the request. All right. And then as far as when we respond to records, the response time is 3 business days. If the request is more extensive, sometimes we do extend that. Their hourly research and retrieval fee is currently $41.37, but the first hour is free. And then if the request is denied, the reason will be provided in writing. All right, so coming back around to how that relates to you guys. As a reminder, your emails and text messages relating to public functions of your appointed position are requestable under Quora, and we do recommend that you keep transparency in mind in your communications. And we've referenced Colorado Sunshine Law here just because they're similarly related to transparency, right? All right, we're at the end here. Does anybody have any questions about Quora? No? Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and. Yeah.
Thank you for coming and helping us out here. Okay, let's see. Staff, are you ready for item number 2, Hiawatha Garden scope?
Yes, I am. Thank you. For the record, Chelsea Royston, planner with the planning department. And let me get my screen shared here. Did you? And while we get situated, so Erin Ringsred is also a planner with the planning department. However, for the Hiawatha Gardens project, she is acting as the project manager on behalf of the city. So in order to kind of help delineate what our roles are, I will be the planner on the case. And so I'm sitting at staff's table. Erin is the project manager and acting as the applicant. And so she is at the applicant's table. We're still the same people, don't worry. All right, so jumping in here, we have the purpose of this kind of item here is to review the applicable code requirements and the review process. This is something that we're implementing after kind of as a lesson learned from the library project, where we kind of went through that project in bringing plan sets to you kind of in certain rounds. However, we found that kind of muddied the water. And so we would like to clearly delineate what is in HPC's scope at the beginning of this project. That way we always have this document, the set of meeting minutes and this slideshow to refer back to. as well as any conversation that we have on the record about this project. So as a bit of background, our review process is pretty involved, especially on such a big project. So Hiawatha Gardens, just for the record, is an existing building at 10 Old Man's Trail, and it is in the historic district. It is a historic building and a parking lot currently. The City Council has directed staff to pursue rehabilitating the historic structure into an open air pavilion and building a detached structure for public restrooms, a plaza, and a parking lot. So all of these types of projects go through different types of applications. So they start with administrative review and comment. That's where they'll submit applications to staff. We'll review it for technical compliance with the code. We will give comments and receive revisions back. Once we've deemed the application to be complete, we will forward it to the Historic Preservation Commission and City Planning Commission for their review. They have different scopes. These commissions have different scopes. And so what we're looking at tonight is what will be in the scope of review for the Historic Preservation Commission. Then your recommendation will go to City Council, and they will make certain approvals. If it's within their purview, they also don't have unlimited jurisdiction. And then the technical components of the structure and the site construction is under the purview of Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. So the applications that we anticipate for this project, please note that this is the project as we know it today, as it is being prepared. It does not necessarily include all future phases, but what we anticipate right now is a MCAC, which of course is reviewed by planning staff, and then Historic Preservation Commission makes the final approval on that. We also anticipate a rezoning, which goes from planning staff to planning commission, and then city council has two readings. So a first reading and then a second reading and public hearing for the rezoning. The major development plan will run alongside that. And then the grading permit, which is only under staff purview, as that is a very technical document and doesn't have much meat for public commissions. So,
What is it zoned now?
currently, Hiawatha Gardens is 2 parcels at 10 Old Man's Trail, and they are both zoned commercial.
Okay.
So we anticipate, what wasn't on there was we also anticipate a subdivision to go through there to make it 1 parcel because the property lines are kind of messy there. But so it is anticipated that we'll be rezoning it to public facilities.
Okay, thank you.
So regulations by the reviewing bodies, kind of a different look at this. What staff reviews is Title 12, streets and other public places. That's reviewed by our public services department, our city engineer. We also have Title 13, utilities, Title 14, stormwater quality management and discharge control, and Title 18, which is our land use and development code. So again, all of these come together in some very technical documents that have a lot of information on them. Some of that information is also viewed by these other reviewing bodies. So the Historic Preservation Commission will review documents for compliance with Title 17, the Historic Preservation Code, specifically as it relates to the MCAC. So we're looking at new construction, exterior changes on existing construction, and interior changes on publicly owned structures. And then we'll also be looking for compliance with the Historic District Design Guidelines. And as you may know, those guidelines are just that, guidelines. They are not codified. So we do our best to stick with them and observe them for agreement with our code or with our plans. We will also look at Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic places. Those dovetail with our historic district design guidelines and may apply to the Hiawatha Gardens existing historic structure. Planning Commission looks for compliance with the comprehensive plan, dimensional standards, use standards, so parking lots, event halls, things like that. They will also be looking at hazard mitigation, streets, roadways, and intersections, landscape standards, and lighting plans. City Council kind of use all of that. And then PPRBD is looking at the structural documents, so the foundations, loading requirements, construction details, and floodplain regulations. So we have submittal requirements and we have our development review application. Sorry, all of these documents go together to create the plan set that the Historic Preservation Commission will review. So the development review application, the letter of explanation explaining what is proposed on the site, what is proposed for the buildings and any paving. Though, please note that some of those things, even if they're laid out in the letter of explanation, it may not be in your purview to require changes to them. So we'll be looking at the site plan, the floor plan layouts, elevation drawings and details, and the completed checklist for applicability and the materials palette. We're going to go into a little bit about in the different documents that this commission uses to review plans. We're going to go over specific guidelines to show what is in HPC's scope of review, not in HPC's scope of review, and perhaps not applicable to the project. So for building regulations, excuse me, these, we have the historic dance hall. This is a preliminary simplified site plan. And this shows the historic dance hall, which exists currently, the proposed new restroom facility, the plaza to the west, and then parking areas outlined. So
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, what are the two black lines that are going up to the restroom?
that is going to be for pedestrian access. And so this area is, I believe, noted on this diagram just to kind of delineate what may be less parking, more site amenity. Is that correct, Erin?
Yes, that's what that zone is generally for. Those black lines specifically are not a physical improvement. They're just there from a diagrammatic purpose.
Okay, thank you.
So when we talk about the code requirement for an MCAC that is required for any change to major interior architectural features of a publicly owned resource, we're talking about HPC having a scope of review that includes major changes to the existing Hiawatha Gardens building, but does not include interior finishes on the proposed restroom structure. Even though that structure will be in the historic district, it does not fall under the purview of this particular code section. The reason we're drawing the line there in particular is because if we if we chose to interpret the code a certain way, we could be here until the end of time and not actually get buildings built. But so by delineating this, it gives staff more authority to pick finishes and make slight changes based on perhaps product availability or other sort of time constraints, budget constraints, things like that. I will get into each of these, but in chapter 7 of the Historic District Design Guidelines, we're talking about new building construction in the commercial core. And this site is in the commercial core historic subdistrict, which is why this applies. So this slide is really just to show that many of these code or guidelines, they do apply to this project and they will be brought to your review. By comparison, only one section is not within your scope of review, and several sections do not apply to the project. What we're hoping is that in reviewing these sections, we can all, as we agree that these sections outlined here are in your scope of review, maybe we don't need to dive into them as deep tonight. And instead we can focus our energies on what is not in your review and just come to an agreement on that particular item. So the items that are in your review generally look at building alignment, building orientation, mass and scale, prioritizing pedestrian-friendly environments, architectural details that shall be preserved whenever feasible, replacement of missing or deteriorated details, and maintaining original materials if feasible, and then additions to existing buildings that should match the scale and character of the original structure, and constructing using materials that appear similar to those of the existing contributing structures. So all of those things are items that we're going to be bringing to you for your review. You do have purview over these items and could request changes or recommend changes to City Council based on these items. We, again, are proposing that the non-conforming commercial buildings, AKA the new construction of the detached restroom facility, is not within the scope of review, except for the exterior. The exterior will still be within the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission. And then items that do not apply, franchise architecture, this is not a franchise. The building form, roof form, things like that, they don't typically apply, as those are more, those sections speak more about the downtown commercial core buildings that are right up against the street and just have a different massing and form. The distinction between street level and upper stories, these are both single floor structures. Building entrances shall appear similar. I believe that this will be different as well, considering they are used for vastly different reasons. It's not like we're building a second Hiawatha Gardens building. We're just building a restroom next to it. And so it will have a fundamentally different architectural need in terms of entrances. And then there are no awnings proposed, so that does not apply either. Again, we're looking still for the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, which is defined as the act or process of making possible a compatible use for a property through repair, alterations, and additions while preserving those portions or features which convey its historical, cultural, and architectural values. So we'll be using these standards as well where appropriate, and reviewing this application or application types through that lens as well, if appropriate. I just want to check in and make sure Erin doesn't have anything to add on this section.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to pause here, because I can maybe speak to why, again, some of those items aren't going to be applicable to this project in terms of what we're proposing, if that's helpful for the commission. Erin rings red for the record.
Aaron, I'm not sure this is an appropriate question, but I have a question. Originally, it was an open air pavilion. Do you know what the flooring was then, when it was an open air pavilion? Because I heard that the flooring now, the wood floor will be taken up and put someplace or stored. And then I'm curious to see how that's, rehabilitation. I just was curious what that plan was. It might be too early to ask.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I have not conducted research or don't know off the top of my head what that material was when it was an open air pavilion. I can speak to, we do have a meeting scheduled with History Colorado to kind of go through some of these things as they relate to Secretary of the Interior grant eligibility, that sort of thing, to make sure we're working with them. Given that this property is in the floodplain, we have certain, we've got multiple code requirements that are intersecting here, and that is really what's driving this change to the flooring, is less about a desire to not have wood flooring and more of the practical implications of an open air pavilion in a floodplain and the current state of that wood flooring. So right now, for those of you I think have been in there before, the area where the previous occupant had a leak of some sort, that flooring is not potentially able to be like saved. So we are working with them to identify what can be saved, what can't be, given the current condition because of the previous ownership uses. So
Thank you.
the proposed material will be concrete.
It'd be stamped it's not stamped or designed concrete, or just the gray slab?
That is too early for me to tell.
Okay.
I think we're looking at every budget lens, as well as, talking to State Historic Fund, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering if we're going to be provided any historical photos or documents.
There's a historic inventory available online on the Hiawatha Gardens project page.
Okay.
So that's something you can look at anytime. It's available to the full public. So
Thank you.
Okay, so that kind of covers our building regulations. We're gonna run through the same format for the site improvements. This is a diagram showing the areas in yellow that kind of make up the rest of the site other than the buildings. So again, we have several items that are within the HPC scope of review, several items that are not applicable to the project, and then one item that we wanted to talk about not being in the scope of review. So within the scope of review, we see guideline 10.1 to preserve all existing stone walls, bridges, and stairs. 10.2, looking at steep topography and using retaining walls, bridges, and stairs to integrate those into the site plan. 10.3, again, retaining walls, bridges, stairs, and their appearance and alignment with adjacent walls. 10.6 indicates that the mechanical equipment shall not be a dominant component on the street edge. 10.9 indicates that exterior lighting fixtures shall be similar in character and intensity to those traditionally used on the exterior of contributing commercial buildings. And 10.10, security features shall not be discerned as a primary component to the building facade. So again, just to repeat, all of those will be within the HPC scope review, and I do have some nuances to clarify on some of those that we'll get into. Not in the HPC scope of review is primarily going to be items and elements that are more heavily restricted or regulated under other code sections. So here we're looking at site drainage, parking alignment, landscaping, and lighting not affixed to the historic buildings. We're also looking at painting and surface treatments, which typically do not trigger MCACs as well. So while some of these items may, we may see parts of them in an HPC review, for instance, landscaping. The Historic District Design Guidelines require that parking lots are screened from view. They recommend landscaping. However, what we would review as staff would be the landscaping plan, looking at which plants to put where and how thick that, how deep that landscape buffer needs to be. So, and we're looking at that in terms of which plants can survive here, irrigation, green infrastructure, all sorts of other details that look at how successful the site will be, but still accomplish that main HPC goal of screening the parking. So that is kind of one example of how these plans and kind of different levels of oversight work together. Lighting not affixed to the historic buildings, because we are looking at having pedestrian level lighting as well as parking level lighting. Those two things have very different needs from historic lighting abilities. And then we're also pulling in our dark skies requirements, as well as our photometric restrictions that decrease light pollution across property lines.
So on the lighting, there is a neighborhood out there around there. So are you saying that the dark skies will be looked at and we won't try to overlight it? We'll light it for safety and appropriateness, but not overlighting?
Exactly. And what I'm more saying is that the decision of what between being overlighted and being appropriate shall be made at the staff level, or if required, it shall be made at the planning commission and city council level if it's part of that major development plan.
Okay, thank you.
So it just wouldn't be part of HPC's review. So, and then not applicable to this project, we have items such as new driveways. There aren't any proposed. I made a mistake saying the parking areas shall be screened from view. So that is not actually that applicable to this project, as we're having our other landscape buffers that will be triggered, I think is why that's not applicable to this project, as it's being reviewed by another type of plan review, excuse me. 10.7, infill and redevelopment projects shall maintain the tradition of contributing to the ambiance of the downtown. Again, this isn't quite an infill or redevelopment project. This is more a rehabilitation with an addition. Exterior lighting shall not compete with pedestrian lights. And then 10.10, security features shall not be discerned as a primary component. I guess I had that under both applicable and not applicable. Again, there is some nuance there. Being an open air pavilion, it does need more security features. However, they're being designed to be minimally visible, I believe. And Aaron may have some more comments about that. but that sums up the Chapter 10 guidelines. Did you have anything to add, Erin?
Just happy to receive any questions that you guys may have about kind of where that overlap is and anything from the project manager's point of view.
Erin, is there anything, I had heard rumors about Old Man's Trail being vacated and the park joined with the property. Is that just rumors that I hear?
The direction that was given with regards to that can be found in the December 3rd, 2024 minutes from City Council. That has been a request, but not as part of the MCAC that you'll receive in October.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so just a quick recap here. Again, outlining all of the different types of reviews that different bodies will be completing. Historic Preservation Commission will be reviewing under the Material Change of Appearance certification, specifically as it relates to the exterior of the new construction, the exterior changes, and then interior changes to the historic Hiawatha Gardens building. So yes, as Erin said, happy to answer any questions or discuss the process more if anyone has any questions.
Maybe just one. I think, Aaron, a few months ago, you had indicated that this would trigger a partial demolition. Is that still what you're thinking or not?
That's something I think we still need to work through. We know with it going to an open air pavilion, those walls will be removed and won't go back, as an example. And so I'm working with Chelsea and Fred to determine how that falls under code. And it does fall obviously more under the partial demolition because the building's still staying there. So right now, I believe we're still looking at that strategy of, the final decision, but similar to what happened on 144 Ruxton, where in an effort to be transparent with this commission, we do outline the elements of the project that have to be removed to get us into compliance with current building codes and won't be going back. But we won't be requesting it as if it was a full demolition, which, as this body knows, is a lot of information and it doesn't really fit under that when you go through kind of what is a full demolition because the building's staying. So
there, and I have trouble remembering, are there still some of the old walls existing, or is it mostly just plywood that they put up to enclose it?
I am not an expert, but
Okay.
that is how it looks to me when I'm in there, is that they're not historic.
Yeah, I
walls.
think there's nothing left, frankly, on the walls,
But I wouldn't claim to be an expert, so
Okay.
don't hold me to that, but that's what it
Okay.
looks like to me as a lay person with regards to historic construction.
Okay.
I can't imagine we would have painted a mural on historic walls. Okay.
That's a separate type of material too. There is a lot of layering. There's also no electricity in that building right now. So when you're looking at it, you're looking at things with a flashlight.
Right,
So,
right. Okay.
any other questions? Again, happy to answer them.
So will all this information be on the website under documents?
What information?
The presentation? Will that?
It's been our practice to keep the recordings available on YouTube. And then the minutes are on Docs on Demand.
Oh, okay.
So what we may do is reference back to this conversation when we're completing those reviews and those staff reports. That way we know kind of where these decisions were made about what falls in HPC's purview.
Is there any way for us to get a copy of the presentation so we can read it and look at it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I will, I'll email that out after, probably tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, that would be very helpful, just to have.
Okay. Um, so
Just
hearing
one-
no other comments,
I just have a quick question. Do you know what percentage of the floor was ruined by the water? Or do we not know that yet?
I'm not sure what percentage, uh, what, what percentage was damaged by what cause. I've just been told that that 100% of it could not be salvaged.
Okay,
Be better, more accurate answer.
Has the flooring already been removed?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is 717 Duclos Avenue, administrative demolition, retroactive to 2023.
thank you.
Staff?
Yes, so I don't have much of a presentation. I don't have a presentation for this one. And really, I just included kind of a paper trail for you to read through. We've been on quite the journey with this property. Staff has been. So I will glaze over some of the details. It is painstakingly detailed in those documents. But essentially, staff was approached by a concerned citizen when they noticed the illegal demolition of a cottage back behind what is known as the Bonnie Castle, right next to the elementary school. This was in 2023, and I will be the first to admit that this project has not moved to a resolution quickly. So what you see is kind of short bursts of progress made and then longer periods of the project kind of being stalled out. So it turned out that the application, that the demolition of the cottage was approved by Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. It was not routed to Manitou Springs. It is standard that it is routed to Manitou Springs, so we're still not quite sure what happened there. The owners indicated that previous staff had told them that it was okay to demolish since that wasn't the historic structure on the site. The Bonnie Castle, by contrast, is a contributing resource to the historic district. And so we went through, Fred and I went through a number of meetings with the owners, and they indicated that they had been working in to be in compliance. You know, they weren't doing anything maliciously, and as a result of a illegal demolition, it would have been within staff's purview to implement a 10-year building permit moratorium on the site. The owners indicated that they wanted to do some rehabilitation to the Bonnie Castle, the main primary historic structure on the site. And had we issued the building permit moratorium, they wouldn't have been able to do that. And we would have, staff felt that it would have been unfair to impose a 10-year sentence on a historic structure that is sorely in need of rehabilitation because of the demolition of a structure that turned out to be not contributing to the historic district. I did quite a bit of research that indicated that this structure was not original to the site. It was not built during the period of significance for that historic district. And with some documentation provided by the owners and in conjunction with guidance from the city attorney, staff instead retroactively approved the administrative demolition of the detached accessory structure retroactive to 2023. This is not an active case as it has already been issued, but again, seeking full transparency with the Historic Preservation Commission, we wanted to let you know the resolution of this case. It has been discussed with this commission before. And so we wanted to bring it to you to let you know the process that we went through and just seek any feedback that you might have. So thank you very much.
Any feedback from?
I just had a question. Did we ever find out why regional didn't inform Manitou? Were they asked?
They were asked. I actually was not part of that conversation. I can follow up with them. I know that we are currently reviewers on every demolition in town.
Thanks.
What year was the cottage built?
That is a good question. And when I know it was built prior to 1987 because that is when alterations were permitted by the Historic Preservation Commission. It was, let's see, going back through some of these documents, it was not on the 1900 Sanborn Fire Insurance Map. It was indicated on a 1993 improvement location certificate for the property. So that narrows it down to 93 years. And then the Historic District nomination form in 1983 indicated that the Bonnie Castle was historic, but it did not associate an accessory structure on that site. We do see that that indication for other properties throughout town if they have like a cottage associated with it. It was outlined in that 1983 form. So I would say it was somewhere between 1983 and 1987. And it's possible that the 1987 MCAC was actually just for that building. So I'm sorry, I don't have an exact date for that.
Chelsea, wasn't there a document that indicated there was an alteration? They removed the brick look siding in 1964, I think. But that just makes it a little older. I mean, it probably isn't that relevant now, but.
Yeah, sorry. Again, as I mentioned, this kind of stalled out and did
Just-
research and so I don't have that
Yeah.
information.
No, just based on the photos, it looks
Thank you.
a lot older, I think. So, if no one else has any comments, it sounds like the owners were perfectly in line getting their permit, and it just didn't happen to go through the proper procedures. So
Yeah,
it was like a long, hard.
it seemed like a perfect storm. We had some
Yeah.
staff turnover at the same time. And there is a possibility that we'll see an MCAC for a new accessory structure coming forward from this applicant, these owners soon. But there were other items that they wanted to rehabilitate on the Bonnie Castle that I think kind of began this whole conversation, several planners ago. So.
Right. Yes, well, thanks for all the background information. I'm sure it took a while to dig all that up, but very thorough.
So this is just informational for us. They're moving ahead with the project.
So this is sort of separate from the project, and I wanted to bring this to you before they submit an MCAC because this really is its own administrative item. I did want to make you aware of it. It's been our practice to bring administrative demolitions to you as a notice after the fact. And so I'm following through with that process as a way to sort of clear the air, give them a clean slate prior to bringing forward an MCAC.
Thanks.
I just had a question. When you assume or you think they're going to ask for an ADU to be built, will it fall under the code about ADUs then?
Yes, but I don't believe it's decided if it will be an ADU yet or if it will be a detached garage.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, if no further questions about 717 Duclos, I guess we can move on to adjournment
Yay.
at, what time is it?
6:43 p.m.
6:23. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready?